You know when you're listening to someone speak English and it just sounds, well, right, effortless. Like the words are flowing with this kind of natural rhythm. Maybe you've thought, gosh, I wish my English sounded like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
That's the goal, isn't it? The natural flow. So often, when learning English, the focus is really heavy on the nuts and bolts, grammar rules, vocab lists.
Right.
And look, those are absolutely foundational, but they don't always unlock that smooth conversational quality you hear in native speakers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So forget endless grammar drills for this deep dive. We're going to unpack some really powerful strategies, things that go way beyond the basics, and really get to the heart of how English is actually spoken. Think of this as your insider's guide to sounding more authentic, more confident when you speak English, no matter where you're starting from.
And it's not about, trying to sound like you're from London or Los Angeles specifically. It's more about understanding and using those subtle patterns, the little nuances that make spoken English sound so fluid.
Yeah.
These are often things native speakers just do, kind of instinctively, without even thinking about it.
And seriously, stick with us right to the end on this one. We've got a bonus tip coming up, something learners often miss, but it can be a total game changer for that natural English sound. Okay, let's get into it. First up, the music of the language mastering rhythm and intonation.
Yes. This is fascinating because spoken English really does have this distinct musicality. It's not just a flat line where every word gets the same emphasis.
Right, not robotic.
Exactly. Some words naturally carry more weight, more stress, while others are sort of reduced, spoken more quickly. This kind of back and forth between stressed and unstressed syllables creates that natural ebb and flow.
So which words usually get the stress?
Generally, it's the content words, the nouns, main verbs, adjectives, adverbs. They carry the core meaning, right? While the function words, little words like prepositions, articles, pronouns, they often get reduced, kind of squashed down. That contrast is the rhythm.
It makes sense. If you stressed every single word equally, it would sound, I don't know, almost mechanical, wouldn't it?
Totally mechanical.
But when you hit those key meaning words harder and just glide over the little ones, that's when it starts sounding like the English you hear, out and about. So how do we actually get a better feel for this rhythm?
Well, that raises a good point, and one of the best techniques is something called shadowing. Have you heard of it?
Shadowing? Like being an echo?
Pretty much, yeah. You listen to native speakers, maybe podcasts like this one, videos, bits from movies, and you try to repeat what they're saying at the same time.
Oh, wow. Simultaneously.
Yeah, simultaneously. It helps your brain subconsciously pick up those musical features, the prosody, almost bypassing the need to memorize explicit rules. A bit like how kids learn their first language,
I've tried this a little bit, actually. It feels kind of weird at first, like you're just mimicking.
Yeah.
But I guess it really forces you to listen not just to what they say, but how they say it, the ups and downs.
Precisely. And don't sweat getting every single word perfect right away. The real focus should be listening intently to where their voice rises, where it falls, which words pop out, which ones are almost mumbled. That's the intonation and stress pattern you're trying to absorb.
You mentioned recording yourself, too. That sounds intimidating, like putting yourself under a microscope.
It can feel that way, but honestly, it gives you incredible feedback. Record yourself saying a sentence or two. Then listen to a native speaker say the same thing. Then listen back to yourself.
Okay.
What do you notice? Is your voice kind of flat, or does it have that rise and fall like the native speakers? Spotting those differences is the absolutely crucial first step to making adjustments.
So it's about really active listening and then actively trying to copy that musicality.
Got it. Now, something else I've noticed is how native speakers seem to, blend their words together sometimes. Which brings us neatly to our next point. Using contractions in connected speech. Yes, this is huge for sounding natural. Native speakers use contractions constantly. Things like whatcha instead of what are you, or gonna for going to. It really makes speech flow faster and smoother.
And I think as learners, there's often this urge to be super precise, right? To pronounce every single syllable. But ironically, while that feels correct grammatically, it can actually make your English sound less natural in just like everyday chat.
Exactly. Speaking too formally, even if it's perfectly grammatical, can sound a bit stiff, maybe unnatural in casual situations. I mean, think about how you talk in your own native language with friends. Do you always use the most formal structures?
No way. Definitely not.
Right. English is the same. So picking up and using these more relaxed, casual speech patterns is really key.
So where are the best places to kind of eavesdrop on these patterns? You mentioned interviews before.
Yeah, interviews are great. Also, just casual conversations in movies or TV shows, not the super formal speeches, maybe. And honestly, just listening to native speakers interacting naturally. Pay attention to how they link words, so the end of one word flows right into the start of the next. Sounds almost mergy.
You had a specific exercise for this, didn't you? Something about practicing a sentence.
Yeah, take a simple sentence like, I will talk to you later. Now, try saying it fast, like a native speaker might in a relaxed way. I'll talk to you later.
I'll talk to you later. Okay.
See how I will just becomes I'll, and to you often softens to ya, or sometimes even chia or cha. Practicing these kinds of connections really trains your mouth and your ear.
That makes total sense. They're like little spoken shortcuts that become automatic. Okay, moving on. Another area that can feel like a bit of a minefield for learners is idioms and phrasal verbs. Feels like a secret code sometimes.
It really can. But using idioms, those colorful phrases where the meaning isn't literal, and phrasal verbs, those word plus preposition combos, is such a hallmark of natural English. If you want to sound fluent, getting comfy with these is pretty essential.
Okay, give us a few examples. Paint the picture.
Sure. So instead of just saying, I'm very tired, a native speaker is way more likely to say something like, I'm exhausted, or I'm wiped.
Right.
Or instead of a formal, let's begin, you'll almost always hear, let's get started, or let's kick things off. These small vocabulary shifts make a surprisingly big difference.
And phrasal verbs. You had some good ones there, too.
Yeah, think about quit versus the super common phrasal verb give up, or find a solution compared to the everyday figure out.
Figure out. Use that all the time.
Exactly. Or instead of meet by chance, you'll hear run into someone. They just add this flavor and informality to everyday English.
So how on earth do we start learning all these? It feels like there are millions.
It can seem overwhelming, definitely.
Yeah.
But the trick is to start small and be consistent. Try learning just one new idiom or phrasal verb each day.
Just one?
Just one. Write it down, make sure you really get what it means in context, maybe look up a few examples, and then this is key, consciously try to use it, slip it into a conversation, even if you're just talking to yourself. Over time, that daily habit really builds up your repertoire.
One a day. Okay, that sounds doable. Not quite so scary. All right, next up, pronunciation. I think this is where a lot of learners feel maybe the most self-conscious or like it's just too hard to change.
And that's totally understandable. But the good news is pronunciation is absolutely a trainable skill, just like playing piano or learning to swim. It takes practice, but you can improve significantly, even those sounds that seem impossible at first.
Like those dreaded TH sounds, maybe. Or for some people, differentiating R and L.
Exactly those. Focusing on the specific sounds you personally find tricky is a great starting point. For TH, really think about your tongue. Where is it? For think, it's between your teeth. For this, it's just behind them. Feel the difference.
Okay.
For R, it's about how your tongue pulls back, maybe curls a bit. And V versus W, that's all about the lips and teeth. Very top teeth, bottom lip, west, rounded lips, small physical changes.
You also mentioned something called minimal pairs. I found that really interesting.
Yes, minimal pairs, they're brilliant. These are pairs of words that sound almost identical, except for one tiny sound difference. Practicing them really sharpens your ear and your mouth's ability to make those fine distinctions.
Like
Ship versus sheep, that short I versus the long E, or bit versus beat, live versus leave. Focusing on those tiny vowel or consonant differences makes a huge impact on clarity.
And tongue twisters. Everyone knows she sells seashells by the seashore. Are they actually useful or just a bit of fun?
Oh, they're definitely useful. Think of them as like gym exercises for your mouth muscles.
Huh.
They force you to move between difficult sounds quickly and clearly. Helps build coordination and dexterity.
Yeah.
They might seem silly, but they genuinely work to train your articulators, your tongue, lips, jaw.
Okay, so targeted sound practice, minimal pairs, and some tongue twisting fun. Got it. Now, this next one feels really important, but maybe a bit more abstract. Thinking in English.
Yes, this is often a massive hurdle. The default for most learners is to think in their native language and then translate into English as they speak.
Yeah, that mental translation step.
Right. But that process, it not only slows you right down, but it can also lead to phrasing that sounds, well, a bit off. Unnatural, because sentence structures and idioms often just don't map directly between languages.
It's like having this little overworked translator buzzing away in your head all the time.
Exactly. And it uses up so much mental energy, making your speech sound hesitant, less fluid. The goal really is to cut out the middleman. Start forming thoughts directly in English.
But how do you even start doing that, shifting your whole internal monologue?
It takes conscious effort, definitely, and consistent practice. Start simple. Look around you. See a chair. Think chair first, not the word in your native language.
Okay, like relabeling your world in English.
Precisely. Then build up. Narrate your day to yourself internally. Okay, now I'm making coffee, I'm pouring the water, it smells good. Even just simple stuff. You can even try talking to yourself out loud in English when you're alone. Feels weird at first, maybe, but it's a zero-pressure way to practice just formulating thoughts in English.
So it's about building those English mental pathways, making it more automatic over time. I can totally see how that would lead to more natural, faster speech. Okay, our next strategy is all about your environment, surrounding yourself with English.
Immersion. It's incredibly powerful for language learning, especially getting that intuitive feel for the language. The more you expose yourself to real, authentic English, the more your brain just naturally starts absorbing those rhythms, intonations, common phrases.
So it's not just about sitting down and studying grammar, but also just kind of soaking it up by being around it.
Exactly. Think about how kids learn their first language, right? They're just swimming in it constantly, hearing it all day, every day. You can try to create a mini version of that immersion for English.
What are some practical ways to do that, especially if you're not living in, say, the UK or the US?
Oh, there are tons of ways now. Watch English movies and TV shows. Maybe start with subtitles in English, then try turning them off completely. It's an amazing listening practice.
Even if you don't understand everything.
Even if you don't, your brain starts making connections anyway. Listen to English podcasts daily, even just 15, 20 minutes during your commute or while doing chores adds up.
Right.
And, crucially, find ways to actually talk to native speakers. Language exchange apps, online communities, conversation groups, putting it all into practice is vital.
It's about making English a part of your daily fabric, not just a scheduled study time. Okay, and our final main strategy before that bonus tip. This one's about mindset, cultivating confidence and embracing mistakes.
Absolutely crucial. And honestly, often the biggest block for learners. That fear of making a mistake can be paralyzing. It can stop you from speaking at all.
Yeah, I get that.
But here's the thing. Most native speakers, they really don't focus on tiny errors. They're generally super understanding. What they care about is communication. Can they understand you? Are you expressing yourself confidently?
So the message itself is more important than perfect grammar every single time.
Way more important. Think about it. It's like, you probably make little slips in your own native language sometimes, right? Everyone does. What matters is getting your point across.
True. So how can learners actively build that confidence muscle?
Well, you had some great suggestions earlier. Practicing speaking in front of a mirror. That sounds simple, but it helps you get comfortable with the physical act of speaking English, seeing your mouth movements. Recording yourself regularly is another big one, even just short snippets. It lets you hear your progress, which is a huge confidence booster. And joining speaking groups online, offline, whatever, gives you that safe space to practice without fear of judgment. Real interaction builds real confidence.
And the big takeaway here is mistakes aren't bad. They're not something to be ashamed of. They're actually good.
Exactly. They're natural. They're positive. Every mistake is just data. It shows you what you need to focus on next. So try shifting your mindset. Don't fear mistakes. Embrace them as stepping stones.
All right, this has been incredibly useful. We've covered so much rhythm, connected speech, idioms, pronunciation, thinking in English, immersion, confidence. But now it's time. That bonus tip you promised, the overlooked game changer. Lay it on us.
Okay, the bonus tip is what's often called the imitation technique. And it's super powerful because it tackles multiple things at once: pronunciation, intonation, rhythm, fluency, all together.
Ooh, the imitation technique. Sounds intense. How does it work?
It's actually pretty simple in concept.
Yeah.
But really effective. Step 1. Find a short audio clip of a native speaker you like the sound of. Just a few sentences maybe, from a podcast, a news bit, a movie scene.
Okay, short clip. Got it.
Step 2, listen to it. But really listen. Laser focus. Pay attention to every little detail. The exact sounds, the ups and downs of their voice, the speed, the pauses, even the emotion behind it.
Right, super close listening. Then what?
Then, You repeat it. Try to copy exactly what you heard.
Yeah.
Mimic everything as closely as you possibly can. Don't just say the words. Try to match their tone, their speed, that musicality we talked about. You might feel like you're doing an impression.
Ah,
That's good. That's the point.
so like becoming a vocal chameleon for a minute.
Kind of, yeah. And repeat that same short clip over and over. With each repetition, try to get closer and closer to the original, recording yourself doing this and comparing it to the original audio. Even better for spotting where you can still improve. This technique works your pronunciation, your intonation, your rhythm, your fluency, all at the same time, because you're actively replicating that natural flow.
That sounds incredibly efficient, like a shortcut to internalizing those natural patterns without having to consciously think about every single rule.
It really can be transformative. It's almost like you're bypassing the purely intellectual part of language learning and just training your ear in your mouth directly to make the right sounds in the right way.
Fantastic. Well, there you have it, 7 key strategies, plus that brilliant Monas imitation technique, all designed to help you sound more like a native English speaker.
And remember, the absolute key is consistency. Start small, maybe pick 1 or 2 things to focus on this week. Incorporate them into your routine. Over time, you will hear and feel a real difference.
So we'd love to know, what aspect of English fluency do you find the most challenging right now? Is it pronunciation, idioms, confidence? Let us know. It really helps us plan future deep dives.
Absolutely. And just keep this in mind. Every single step you take, every minute you practice, it's bringing you closer to speaking natural, confident English. Embrace that journey. Keep your confidence up, and most importantly, keep talking.